Hello and welcome. Whether you dream of traveling the world, connecting with people from different cultures, or simply expressing yourself with confidence, learning a new language can open up incredible opportunities. Today, we're diving deep into the core principles of achieving fluent communication. We'll explore practical strategies and mindset shifts that will transform your learning journey. So, let's get started. Mastering English is a goal shared by countless individuals around the world. For many, it represents not just a skill but a gateway to new opportunities, connections, and experiences. I remember my own journey as a young student, filled with dreams of speaking English fluently. Like many of you, I was eager to communicate effortlessly, but I often felt held back by my shyness and the fear of making mistakes. One day, a teacher said to me, "Fluency comes with daily practice." Those words became a turning point in my life. They taught me that fluency, like any skill, requires dedication, patience, and consistent effort. It's not something that happens overnight, but rather something you cultivate over time, much like planting a tree. You plant the seed, water it, give it sunlight, and care for it every day. Eventually, it grows into something strong and enduring. Fluency is no different. It grows through daily practice, persistence, and a willingness to learn. I recall a student who came to me feeling disheartened. She said, "Teacher, I want to speak English, but I always forget the words." I smiled and told her, "Fluency isn't about remembering every single word. It's about practice and confidence." She looked at me with hope and asked, "But how can I practice?" I explained that practice is everywhere. You can practice by talking to friends, listening to stories, singing songs, or even thinking in English. Every moment of the day can be an opportunity to improve. I shared my own experience of listening to stories as a child. My teacher would read to us every night, and I would repeat the words. At first, I was slow and hesitant, but with time, I became faster and more confident. I learned new words, my vocabulary expanded, and my fluency grew. Another student once asked me, "Teacher, is fluency only about speaking fast?" I told her no. Fluency is about speaking clearly and making yourself understood. It's not about speed but about confidence and clarity. I remembered a boy in my class who spoke very quickly, but no one could understand him. I advised him to slow down, use simple words, and focus on clarity. He listened, and soon everyone could understand him. His confidence grew, and he began to enjoy speaking in English. This taught me that fluency is not just about the words you say, but how you say them. Fluency is a journey, not a destination. It's about taking one step at a time and enjoying the process. Many students start out feeling nervous and unsure, but with time and practice, they grow more confident and fluent. One of the secrets to fluency is listening. The more you listen, the more you learn. I knew a girl who loved music. She would listen to English songs every day and soon started singing along. Her fluency improved because she was listening and repeating. Listening to conversations, stories, and even podcasts can help you pick up new words, phrases, and ways of expressing yourself. Mistakes are an inevitable part of learning, and they are also some of our best teachers. I remember a student who was terrified of making mistakes. She was so afraid of being laughed at that she wouldn't speak at all. I told her, "Don't worry about mistakes. Every mistake is a lesson." One day, she decided to speak in class. She made many mistakes, But she didn't stop. She kept speaking, and over time, she became better. She told me, "Teacher, I'm not afraid anymore." That was the day she truly began her journey to fluency. Another important aspect of fluency is thinking in English. When you think in English, you start to speak more naturally. I had a student who always translated from his native language to English. This made him slow and often confused. I told him, "Try to think in English even when you're alone." He started doing this, and slowly he became more fluent. There was another student who loved to talk but would often switch to his native language mid-sentence. I encouraged him to stay in English even if he didn't know a word. He learned to explain things in English, and this helped him stay focused. Soon he was speaking only in English. Reading is another powerful way to improve fluency. When you read, you see how sentences are formed, and you learn new words. I remember when I was learning English, I would read simple books every day. Whenever I came across a new word, I would write it down and try to use it in a sentence. This helped me remember the words and use them naturally in conversation. A student once came to me with a book and said, "Teacher, I read this book, but I didn't understand everything." I told her, "That's okay. The more you read, the more you'll understand." She continued reading every day, and after some time, she came back to me and said, "Now I understand much more." Her fluency improved because she was reading and learning new things every day. Listening to yourself is also important. Sometimes, you need to record yourself speaking and then listen to the recording. This helps you identify areas where you can improve. I had a student who did this every day. She would record herself reading a story and then listen to the recording. She would note where she could improve her pronunciation or intonation. This practice made her more aware of her speech, and soon, she became more fluent. Practicing with a friend is another great way to gain fluency. I had two students who were best friends. They decided to speak only in English with each other every day. They would have conversations in English, helping each other with words they didn't know. Over time, both of them became very fluent. They learned from each other and enjoyed the process. Fluency also comes from using the language in real-life situations. When you go to the market, try to speak in English. When you're with friends, try to use English. The more you use the language, the more fluent you become. I had a student who worked in a shop. He decided to speak only in English with his customers. At first, it was difficult, but with time, he became more confident and fluent. Curiosity is another key to fluency. When you hear a new word, don't ignore it. Find out what it means and try to use it in your next conversation. I remember a student who was very curious. Every time he heard a new word, he would ask me what it meant. Then he would try to use that word as much as possible. His vocabulary grew, and so did his fluency. It's also important to have a goal. Ask yourself, why do I want to be fluent in English? When you have a clear goal, you are more motivated. I knew a student who wanted to travel to an English-speaking country. This was her goal. Every day, she practiced speaking English because she wanted to be ready for her trip. Her goal kept her motivated, and she became fluent before she traveled. I also tell my students to enjoy the process. Fluency doesn't come overnight. It takes time, but if you enjoy the journey, it becomes easier. I once had a student who loved watching English movies. He would watch one movie every night. At first, he used subtitles, but after a while, he started watching without them. He enjoyed the movies, and at the same time, he was improving his fluency. Fluency is about repetition. The more you repeat, the better you become. I remember a student who loved to repeat sentences. He would hear something in class and then say it over and over again. This helped him remember the sentences, and soon he was using them in his daily conversations. Speaking with different people also helps with fluency. Every person has a different way of speaking. When you talk to different people, you learn different styles of speaking. I once had a student who was very shy. He only spoke to me. I encouraged him to speak to other students. At first, he was nervous, but with time, he became more comfortable. He learned new ways of expressing himself, and his fluency improved. Sometimes, it's good to practice speaking about topics you love. When you talk about something you enjoy, you are more passionate, and the words come more easily. I had a student who loved football. Every day, he would talk to me about football. This helped him become more fluent because he was speaking about something he was excited about. Fluency also comes from understanding that it's okay not to know everything. Sometimes, you may not know a word, and that's okay. Try to explain it in another way. I had a student who always wanted to know the exact word for everything. If he didn't know the word, he would stop speaking. I told him, if you don't know the word, try to describe it. This helped him keep the conversation going, even when he didn't know the exact word. A student once asked me, "Teacher, how long will it take to become fluent?" I told him, it depends on how much you practice. Some people become fluent in a few months, while for others, it takes longer. But the important thing is to keep going. Don't stop. This student practiced every day, and soon he saw progress. Sometimes, it's helpful to practice in front of a mirror. When you see yourself speaking, you become more aware of your expressions and gestures. I had a student who was very shy. She didn't like to speak in front of others. I told her to practice in front of a mirror. This helped her become more confident, and soon she was speaking more fluently. Another student asked me, "Teacher, what should I do if I forget a word while speaking?" I told him, don't stop. Keep talking. Sometimes the word will come to you later. If not, use another word. This helped him stay calm when speaking, and he didn't worry about forgetting words. It's also important to take breaks. Sometimes your brain needs rest. After a long day of practice, it's good to relax. I knew a student who practiced all the time. She became very tired and started to feel frustrated. I told her, take a break, relax. Come back tomorrow with a fresh mind. After taking breaks, she felt better, and her fluency continued to improve. Fluency is also about using the language in creative ways. You can write a short story, sing a song, or even make a video. I had a student who loved to write. She would write short stories in English every day. This helped her practice new words and sentences. Soon she started reading her stories aloud, and her fluency improved. Another way to practice is by teaching others. When you teach, you learn even more. I had a student who was very fluent. She decided to help her friends who were not as fluent. She would teach them new words and practice speaking with them. This not only helped her friends but also made her even more fluent. Sometimes, it helps to have a routine. Set a time every day to practice speaking English. I had a student who would practice every morning for 30 minutes. This was his routine. He followed it every day, and soon he became more fluent. A routine helps you stay disciplined and ensures that you practice regularly. It's also important to be patient with yourself. Fluency takes time. I had a student who was very impatient. He wanted to be fluent quickly, but when he didn't see progress, he became frustrated. I told him, "Be patient. You are making progress, even if it's slow." He listened to me and continued to practice. Over time, he saw improvement and became more confident. Fluency is not just about speaking. It's also about listening. When you listen carefully, you learn how to respond. I had a student who was a good listener. He would listen carefully before he spoke. This made his responses clear and thoughtful. Listening is a big part of becoming fluent. Another important thing is to stay positive. Learning a language can be challenging, but a positive attitude makes it easier. I had a student who was always positive. Even when she made mistakes, she would smile and try again. This positive attitude helped her stay motivated, and eventually, she became fluent. Fluency is also about being open to new experiences. Sometimes, you may need to step out of your comfort zone. I had a student who was very comfortable speaking in class but shy outside of class. I encouraged her to speak to people outside of school. She was nervous at first, but with time, she became more confident and fluent. It's also helpful to learn from others who are fluent. Watch how they speak. Listen to their intonation and learn from their style. I had a student who admired a famous English speaker. She would watch his videos and try to imitate his style. This helped her improve her own fluency. Fluency is a mix of many things: practice, patience, listening, speaking, and even making mistakes. Each part is important. I once told my students, fluency is like cooking a meal. You need different ingredients, and you need to mix them well. This analogy helped them understand that every part of learning is important. It's also important to celebrate small victories. Every time you learn a new word or speak without hesitation, celebrate it. I had a student who would celebrate every small achievement. This made her feel proud and motivated her to keep going. Celebrating small victories helps you see your progress and stay motivated. One day, a student asked me, "Teacher, what if I get stuck while speaking?" I told him, "It's okay to pause and think. Take a deep breath and then continue." This advice helped him stay calm when he faced challenges while speaking. He learned to manage his pauses, and his fluency improved. Fluency is also about practicing what you learn. If you learn a new word today, try to use it tomorrow. I had a student who would learn a new word every day and then use it in a sentence. This practice helped him remember the words and use them naturally in conversation. Another important thing is to learn from your surroundings. Sometimes, you can learn English from signs, posters, and even menus. I had a student who loved to explore the city. Every time he saw an English sign, he would read it and try to understand it. This helped him learn new words and phrases that he could use in conversation. It's also helpful to be curious about the culture behind the language. English is spoken in many countries, and each country has its own way of speaking. I had a student who was very interested in British English. He would watch British shows and learn about their culture. This helped him understand different ways of speaking and made him more fluent. Fluency is not just about words. It's also about body language. When you speak, your body language adds meaning to your words. I had a student who was very good with body language. Even when he spoke simple sentences, his body language made him seem more fluent. This helped him communicate more effectively. Sometimes, it's good to challenge yourself. Try to speak about a topic you don't know well. This helps you learn new words and ideas. I had a student who loved sports, but he decided to talk about science. At first, it was difficult, but with time, he learned new words and became more fluent in discussing different topics. Fluency also comes from being relaxed. When you are relaxed, your words flow more easily. I had a student who was very tense when speaking. I told him to take deep breaths before he spoke. This helped him relax, and his fluency improved. Another way to practice is by asking questions. When you ask questions, you start conversations. I had a student who was very good at asking questions. He would ask his classmates about their day, their hobbies, and their interests. This practice helped him become more fluent because he was always engaged in conversations. It's also important to reflect on your progress. Every few weeks, take a moment to think about how much you have improved. I had a student who kept a journal. Every week, he would write about his progress in learning English. This helped him see how far he had come and motivated him to keep going. Fluency is also about being flexible. Sometimes, you may need to change the way you say something to make it clear. I had a student who was very good at this. If someone didn't understand him, he would change his sentence until they did. This skill made him more fluent because he could adapt to different situations. Another important thing is to stay connected with other learners. When you learn with others, you can share your experiences and learn from each other. I had a student who joined an English club. Every week, she would meet with other learners and practice speaking. This helped her stay motivated and improve her fluency. It's also helpful to set small goals. Instead of saying, "I want to be fluent," say, "I want to learn 5 new words this week." I had a student who set small goals every week. These goals were easy to achieve, and each time she reached one, she felt more confident. Over time, these small goals added up, and she became more fluent. Fluency is also about being persistent. Even when it's difficult, don't give up. I had a student who struggled with English for a long time. He wanted to give up many times, but he kept going. One day, he realized that he was speaking more fluently than before. His persistence paid off. Sometimes, it's good to revisit what you have learned. Go back to old lessons and review them. I had a student who would review her notes every month. This helped her remember what she had learned and made her more confident in using the language. Another important thing is to stay open-minded. Sometimes, you may hear different ways of saying the same thing. I had a student who was very curious about different dialects of English. He would learn how people from different places spoke. This made him more adaptable and fluent in different situations. Fluency also comes from enjoying the language. Find something you love in English, whether it's a book, a movie, or a song. I had a student who loved English poetry. She would read poems every day and try to understand them. This made her more passionate about the language and helped her become more fluent. It's also important to ask for feedback. When you speak, ask someone to tell you how you did. I had a student who would always ask me for feedback after speaking. This helped him see where he could improve and what he was doing well. Feedback is a valuable tool in becoming more fluent. Another way to improve fluency is by using flashcards. Write down new words on flashcards and review them regularly. I had a student who made flashcards for every new word he learned. He would review them every day. This helped him remember the words and use them in conversation. Fluency is also about being comfortable with silence. Sometimes, you need a moment to think before you speak. I had a student who was afraid of silence. He thought he had to speak immediately. I told him, it's okay to pause and think. This helped him feel more comfortable and speak more clearly. If you found these insights helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who's also on their language learning journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tips and strategies to help you become a confident communicator. We'd love to hear about your own experiences. What's your biggest challenge in language learning? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching and keep learning.